Well, my name is Mary Loop, and I'm one of those that helped found the agency.
I'm Marvin Eckfeldt, and I'm 3 years after I came to Kent to serve the First Christian Church is when Kent Youth and Family Services began to organize.
And I'm Sharon Weiser, and I started out as a group counselor and project manager.
Well, one of our sons was arrested, and it was published in the local paper. And we had lived there for a long time, so a lot of people knew us. And parents who were concerned kept calling me. And finally, we gathered together in my kitchen and began to try to understand what was happening to our children.
Yeah, I remember that conversation, and the anxiety and all of the feelings that you and Brooks had, because this was all new and there was no resources in the community to help anybody.
And we began to explore other communities and found we were not alone. A lot of other people were experiencing the same thing and looking for the same answers.
Well, as we decided we needed a place to provide the services, Brooks was on the staff of Bell Anderson Real Estate and Insurance Company in town, and they had an unoccupied rental house on North 4th Avenue. They gave that to us for a year, rent-free. And the city of Kent at that point was using revenue sharing funds. They began to support Kent Youth and Family Services. And that's when the Kent Human Services Commission was created. And the city then stepped up and allocated money out of the general fund of the tax dollars. Jack Gretz from the Episcopal Church, Bruce Homefeld from the Baptist Church, and Bill Carlton from the Presbyterian Church. And then in the earliest days, Carol Sprague was the minister at the United Methodist Church, and Jerry Hickman was the minister at the Kent Lutheran Church. And all of those ministers were supportive of what we were doing, and each of them had a kind of an influence in a portion of the community leadership. When we started, it was so difficult to get community conversations about the challenge. It was not talked about in families. There was very little drug education or abuse curriculum in the schools.
John Brumett was one of the first young people on our board, and he recently passed away. But he was involved with the agency right from the start. But we had paint donated to us by the fire department, and it was a bucket of bright red and another bucket of white. And so I went off to lunch, and assuming that they would trim it with white and paint it red. And I came back, and they had painted it all together in one bucket. And it was the most peculiar bright pink you ever saw.
I was just overwhelmed that I went to those all-staff meeting a year ago. And am I correct in saying there were over 200 staff persons? As a local church pastor who worked with families within the congregation, it was a tremendous relief to have an agency to be able to refer young people to, or to be able to refer parents to, and to know the extreme professionalism of the group, and to be able to trust somebody who's hurting into the hands of somebody who's a helper, and to know that you didn't have to worry about whether they would be taken care of or whether the services that they needed would be available.